Hello, today I'm joined by my guest Hannah Edwards from Peter Allen Estate Agents. Hannah, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. We're here to talk about something which, let's face it, kind of experimental, but we as agents have been talking about this in one form or another for many years, and that is sort of being digital sale ready. Um, you've got more experience than most, actually, which is why we're speaking to you today because you've been part of a pilot scheme and you've really been trialing this at scale.
Yeah,
Just to put it into context, we're all working on the premise that getting your sellers started earlier, i.e., not waiting till they've agreed a sale, not waiting till they're really far down the line, scratching their head of, ooh, who's my solicitor going to be, and where are the deeds to my house, and all the other fun stuff that we used to just leave, didn't we?
yeah,
Back in the old days. It makes a lot of sense to bring that forward, but who am I to talk about that? You've lived and breathed it. So do you want to give us an overview of sort of your view on it, please, Hannah?
yeah, absolutely. I suppose being digitally sale ready rather than everything else you just mentioned then, um, is just a little bit more than sort of gathering details at the start. It's making sure that we've got information gathered up front that's reliable, it's verified, it's accessible, to everyone that needs to be involved throughout the process and all the way through to completion. What was exciting for us about the partnership between Moverly and then NPTN, the National Property Transaction Network by LMS, is that enabled the data to move seamlessly all the way from us through to the conveyancers and any other sort of key stakeholders that needed to be involved, rather than it just being buried in a static folder in a computer somewhere, or just when somebody picks it up, oh, I'll do something with it now. So for the first time, we're seeing people being fully connected from a start to finish process, so they can um, be on that for the whole entirety of the journey. And for us, it just means our sellers are genuinely prepared, and they were actually really on board with it. Because they're in full agreement. They don't know what's wrong with the buying and selling process, but they just know that it's not right.
And
So
isn't that the truth? So basically, people in their lifetime, by generally speaking, unless you're a career investor, you buy properties so infrequently, you have
yeah,
no idea what to expect in the process. So if it takes 6 months and it's all delayed, you just assume that's a typical experience. It may
yeah,
frustrate you, but you don't know.
yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about that. And by the way, thank you so much for spelling out what MPTN stands for because it's a mouthful, but
It is. It took me a while. It took me a while to practice it.
you mastered that. I'm so glad you had a go at that instead of me. But I think you've got some great names behind this. You reference Movily and LMS, and I think just in general, if you've read the news headlines, there's an awful lot of money and resource and dedication going into trying to iron out the kinks in the sales process. There are a lot of minds out there that are beavering away trying to come up with a decent solution. This is very important to everybody because we all know that there's no real commitment until we get to exchange of contracts. So we've always relied on forward momentum as agents, haven't we?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's simply not enough these days. And so it must have been a bit of when they approached you initially and sort of said, well, will you give yourself to this pilot? Will you have a go at it? When was that? And how was the process?
So I think initially, early on in 2024, we were approached to sort of have a discussion, um, and talk around the concept of, if we've got this digital sale ready process, this is how this was look and feel, and basically, would you like to be a part of it? And it was an easy yes for us, to be fair, because like we've already talked about, everybody knows this system is not great. Um, And it just felt like a clear and seamless solution to sort of try and get people moving quicker. Let's remember we need to keep the customers at the forefront of everything that we do. But as agents, we need it to be easy for them as well, so that they
Yeah.
can continue to help keeping people moving. It needs to be easy for everyone, not just the customers. So by the time we launched it was sort of about September, October 2024. We had all of our valuers, our key stakeholders, managers, all in the room to sort of discuss the concept with them. Again, the buy-in was sort of easy in the first instance. The challenge is obviously getting people to learn sort of what is a new system. We're human beings, we don't like change, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But actually, the system that we used was so easy in itself that once we'd learned how to use it and we were able to educate the sellers, it just became sort of a natural part of the process quite quickly. And as with everything, we had our own early adopters within that as well, and they became their own subject matter experts. So it was quite easy for us to sort of scale it quickly.
And I suppose getting on board early puts you ahead of the rest, and really at the forefront of pushing this forward. It's
Yeah,
interesting, isn't it? Because I think that this concept of trying to get everybody on the same page and that interconnectedness that is so necessary has been what's really been putting us off for a while, because we always believed that, well, if we as agents used it, well, maybe the sellers wouldn't engage with it, maybe our buyers wouldn't engage with it, maybe solicitors and other stakeholders, mortgage providers, and so on, wouldn't all be able to feed into the system. As I understand it, that's actually panning out to not be the case.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about things like compliance, I mean, it's not the most attractive of subjects, is it? It's not a sexy subject. Well, not for sales, not for a typical salesperson
It
anyway.
is today, ladies and
It
gentlemen. Do
is to,
not
it,
tune out. Do not
it
tune
is
out.
it is today. But on a serious note, there's a twofold reason for me as to why this is so important for us to be talking about it early on. Because if I want to demonstrate myself as, the go-to estate agent and somebody who's reputable, if I'm gathering that information up front, I can demonstrate that on that day that I'm given an accurate valuation based off of the information that I'm given. And also then I can start to demonstrate to my customer that if I have this right now, not only are you getting, accuracy from me and we can sort of build that strategy together, I can help you to move quicker and you can get to your goal, whatever that may be, a whole lot quicker than if we do it the way that we've always done it. So that's from both an estate agent's perspective and a seller's perspective. It's just a no-brainer.
So it's the results really do speak for themselves as well, don't they? So you've
Yeah,
noticed um some market differences from sort of before and after. Do you want to
yeah.
sort of take us through the uptick that you've seen?
Yeah, excuse me. So from when we started this, we saw our completions, they went through the roof. Um, I think we had an uptick of 43% more homes
Wow.
completing,
That's
which is
substantial. It's all,
yes, it's
that's huge.
transformational, isn't it? Because, for us, that means securing more instructions. It means our agents are getting paid their commissions quicker. It means a better experience for the customers. And of course, it's protecting what we've already got already because, we had less fall throughs off the back of it because we could get people through. We know that a lot of fall throughs happen just by sheer frustration because nobody really knows what's going on. Again, it's that it's not right and it's not wrong. So we were able to sort of protect a lot more fall throughs as well.
It's that pipeline and revenue that's often, perhaps not at micro level in the branches where they're at sort of the KPIs are targeted on the individual tasks that they've got. But if you sit in a
Yeah,
managerial role, as I know that you often do, um, we are also tasked with managing the sort of financial health of the overall company, and that's got to do a lot with cash flow. It's got to do with what's in
yeah,
our pipeline, what's moving. The longer it sits in our pipeline, the more at risk it then becomes of being susceptible to fall throughs. Lots of things can happen over time. Natural things can happen
yeah,
over time. So your situation as a buyer or a seller may change. You might have a change in in work, in health, and there's just so many things that can
Yeah.
physically go wrong. But then we've also got financial climates, we've got political climates. So the longer everything ticks on, the more at risk that pipeline is. So I can see why, from your point of view, this makes real sense to sort of speed it up, really. And you must feel like you're more in control of it somehow.
Oh, 100%. We all know that time kills deals. And, just with everything that you mentioned then, there's so many different things that can go wrong in the transaction. But this is one thing that we can keep consistent. We can make sure that we get all of this information from sellers up front. We can get their buy-in from it, just so that there's an even playing field across the board.
Well, I want to talk to you about getting that information up front because that's often been one of the barriers. We always thought that people wouldn't have time to do it, and there's been sort of several attempts. And I think what makes those attempts really frustrating is if you hand, as solicitors have been doing for years, if you hand a an average buyer or a seller a stack of paperwork and say, go ahead and fill that in, it instantly sets you back to being at school, sat in that examination hall, and it's daunting, isn't it? Really, it's like tax returns and anything else. You suddenly feel, whoa, that's a lot of paperwork. I'm gonna just leave that for as long as I possibly can now.
Ends up on the coffee table.
Exactly. Now, I know using a smooth digital process, and I'm a big fan of the work that Movily do, for instance. I think wraps all of that burden up in a really easy kind of digital first experience, the same that you would like a world-class onboarding that's similar to the type that you would experience in any online platform that we're so familiar with these days as consumers. Um, please tell me that that has led to an uptick in people filling those forms in as well. So give us an idea of the amount of sort of successful engagement you've had with that.
Yeah, it really was a brilliant system to use because, in part, it was automated. So anything that was able to be sort of gathered automatically was already pre-populated from just a search of the address. And then with the flow of having just one simple digital process, it just meant that the sellers could complete their material information online, but actually they could do it in one sitting if they wanted to. They didn't actually have to. But what we found was, because each stage flowed seamlessly from one to the next, we were finding that I think it was up to 70% of our sellers then just completed all of the information that they needed
That's really
to.
encouraging.
It was huge. Honestly, even
And
we
and
couldn't
that's
believe
across
it.
a different, like all different kind of age
Yeah,
ranges and sort of you
huge
work with a very
disparity of
diverse,
demographic. Yeah,
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 fantastic.
yeah. But it was
Fantastic.
because it was so simple. It was just one portal. It wasn't go here to do this and go here to do that and another link for this. And of course, people don't know, what links to trust and what links to not. It was just
Yeah.
one portal that the valuer in, that person's living room to start off with would have explained then whether they chose to do it with them, at that time, or, the valuer left them to it to, sort of do it in their own time. We found that they were just, really on board with getting it done.
Now, we can't have a discussion in property or prop tech these days without playing prop tech bingo. And the one term that's on everybody's bingo sheet is, of course, AI, because it's all that
Yeah.
people are talking about when it comes to innovation. And obviously, this sort of system is at that forefront of innovation. What role, Hannah, do you see sort of AI playing in this? Can it help? Will it help?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, isn't it? And I think you either need to get on board with it and be okay with it, because it's an enabler. It's there to help people, sort of execute their jobs properly, not to replace them. And I think if you're not on board with that, then you'll just get left behind, because it's definitely something that's going to be sort of a driving force behind this to sort of help again, just get the professionals doing what they need to be doing. For conveyance is going to help them and it's going to give them a real head start. And ultimately, like I said, just to help be able to do your job better.
Talking to our jobs better. One part of our job that we cannot divorce from and we can't really separate is the fact that we need the conveyancers to do what they do. They sometimes think that they don't need us, but we very often are that very calm voice in the background that is taking the pulse of the transaction up and down the chain, trying to reassure everybody. And sometimes we're able to react to things much sooner, due to protocol and everything else. Solicitors can really only speak to their clients and take instructions, whereas you and I can pick up the phone to pretty much anybody in the chain and say, "Hey, what's going on here?" So I see ourselves and our role as agents as being essential to
Yeah,
conveyances, and I will
absolutely.
always stand by that. You and I had a conversation last week, very, very briefly, when we sort of arranged to meet this morning. And one of the bits of the conversation was that I said, "Look, this is all fantastic. I'm a big believer in being digital sale ready, and I'm real fan of the sort of results that you've had, and I can see how this is going to translate into the real world." But I think I shared with you my feeling that I always thought, and I still maintain this, that conveyancers sometimes, sometimes not all of them. There are some fantastic conveyancers
Yeah,
out there, but from an agent's perspective, and sometimes even from a home sort of mover's perspective, so if you get your average client's feedback, conveyancers do seem to be the ones that get lumbered with the hold-ups. They're shifting paperwork and sometimes not at a rate that is helpful to us. How, sort of in general, from your I'm keen to sort of understand the conveyancing angle from this. How do you think this will help the conveyancers to do their jobs a little bit better? Are you seeing them in this early stage sort of engaging? And what are the sort of advantages to that missing link? Because to me, the weakest part of our process at the moment is the conveyancing bit. So does this underpin it, or does it work separately?
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for us to remember this isn't about sort of us gathering all of this information and then just throwing it over to them and then just hoping for the best. It's about equipping them really to be able to work confidently themselves within a fully digitally sale ready environment. There's groundwork involved, that makes all of that possible. And Movely and LMS have invested time partnering, with the conveyancers to ensure that they can trust the data and that so they're sort of digitally plugged in, so to speak. But once they're connected, then everything changes. The information can arrive securely and instantly, so there's no chasing and going backwards and forwards, no duplication, which is a huge thing. But because the verification has already been agreed up front, there's no repeating of AML checks, etc. So that means that the customers don't have to redo things that they've already done. And of course, for the customer, they're getting a good experience. They've already completed, the information that they need. And then that really does differentiate from a customer service point of view. That is a huge differentiator, and a notably higher customer experience then. Um, and of course, for us, that then ultimately led to more referrals because we had our customers receiving a good experience, the conveyancers had an easier job per se, and then we were able to sort of demonstrate that in more living rooms to sort of gain more referrals.
That's certainly, I mean, anything that can sort of translate through to a higher level of customer service at the end of the
Yeah,
day. That's what it's all about. And it's fantastic to hear that that's actually working in reality, because I think, as we just identified before, that's really where it's felt disjointed before. Now, just to put it in context, because people watching this, if you're not an estate agent, you happen to stumble onto this, and you haven't bought a house recently, if you go to buy a house, you will have to go through AML, which is anti-money laundering procedures, prove your identification. You're likely going to have to do it with your own estate agent if you're selling a house with them. If
yeah,
you're buying a house, you're going to have to do it with that estate agent. Your solicitor will want you to do it. Your mortgage broker will want you to do it, and up to sort of 4 or 5 times in an average transaction. That's only if you bid on one house. So if you're unsuccessful, you have to go again. You might have to do it sort of up to 10 times. So it's a lot, isn't it, Hannah, to sort of get
yeah, it's a lot.
people to keep going, who are you? Prove it to us. Um, it's this sort of system where you've got kind of one reference and everybody's benefiting from it.
Yeah.
It really does take that frustration out of the process from a customer's point of view.
Yeah, and it's visible for everybody. So the customer can log in and log out as we can as estate agents. We can see the milestones. And these just aren't sort of basic milestones. These are proper milestones where you can sort of see, the transaction, you know, coming alive, if you like, and where the process is. And like we've already mentioned, it's easily accessible for everybody. It's clear, it's transparent, um, and it's just going to highlight should there be any problems. It's going to highlight them early enough in the process that hopefully there's somebody who can, rectify whatever the issue is that arises.
I'm really mindful of your time. I'm very, very grateful that you've given it to us today because I think that agents who are watching this are going to get an awful lot out of this.
Mm.
I'm going to wrap up my last two questions into one, really, because I
Okay.
think that they're very much related in terms of getting your team. I mean, it's all right from you and me sat in our ivory towers of management. Yeah, it makes sense. We get a better pipeline. I can see how it's going to impact on customer service. I can smell the good reviews coming down the line, and I can see the checks flowing in. But I've got people in the way, and I've got my team that I need to sort of get incentivized. I need to get them to actually sort of adopt this. So to any agents that are watching this, what are your tips that you've actually learned in process from A, getting your team to really sort of buy into it, and B, to get involved and actually to start rolling this out in earnest?
So I think it is important that agents early on understand the concept so they're able to sell it confidently. Like I said, I don't think there's an agent in the land who doesn't share the view of frustration with regards to the system as it is already. So that should be easy to sort of try and pique somebody's interest. I should imagine that everybody is at least curious um, about what this is. Then it's just about sort of learning it, understanding it, and understanding why we're doing it. Give the customers a better experience, get the transactions through quicker, recommendations come off the back of that, and make sure our commission sort of keeps coming in as well, doesn't it? DSR is a genuine differentiator in the workplace at the minute. So for people on the front line, it's going to help them to win more instructions. But I think it's important we just focus on those outcomes, those completions, the better client experience, the stronger commercial results. If we just keep that in mind, um, then it's a win-win for everybody, honestly.
Fantastic. So where do you see this heading for Peter Allen? You're kind of on board early on in the process. You're already benefiting from it. But for the wider market and talking about our industry as a whole, presuming you see this as a very, very good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We were keen to be sort of early adopters with this, and thankfully we could see sort of tangible progress and good results being made sort of quite quickly. Um, I think going forward, the only way we're going to sort of continue to gain traction with this is the more we're going to need more agents on board with it. The more people who are on board with it, and that's the only way that we're going to really sort of create positive change and literally just turn the industry upside down. We don't want to be waiting for government to do it. We want to be those early adopters to sort of make sure that we can just get that change made.
So for anybody out there that's moaning about the state of your pipelines and the fall throughs that you experience and the rates of completion and also the impact that that has, the human element, the
Yeah,
people that are stuck in their homes that cannot move. Let's face it, that's at the heart of everything that we do as the people. Never,
yeah,
never lose sight of that. But
100%.
if you want to be part of the problem, continue to moan. If you want to be part of the solution, get on board early, like Peter
Yeah,
Allen have done, and you see the
100%.
results early, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the earlier, at the moment, the earlier that anybody joins the process, it becomes a unique selling point for them as estate agents, doesn't it? You
Yeah,
know, like
absolutely.
why wouldn't you do that?
It's such a rarity to be able to sort of say this is our process and this is how it benefits you.
Yeah.
I could sell that in the living room any day of the week.
Yeah,
So yeah.
100%. So the earlier people get on board with it, you'll always be one of the first to sort of, be a, a differentiator and a disruptor in the industry. And it's positive disruption. It's well needed. We all want it. Like you said, do we want to be part of the problem or part of the solution? And I do believe that this is part of the solution.
Hannah Edwards, you are a star. Thank you so much for giving us your time today, and we
You're
will
welcome.
catch up again soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.